Hello everyone. In this video we will discuss 15 interview questions on client script. These questions are for people who are beginner to intermediate. So for people who have an experience from 0 to 5 years of experience in ServiceNow. And if you have more experience than this, then you can also check out this video and see if you can answer all of these questions or not. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Hardit Singh. And if you are liking my content, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit that like button. We will quickly start with the first question and you can see what are client scripts. So this is also an important question if you are a fresher or if you have very less experience. This is a question which will be definitely asked to you and you can answer by saying client scripts allow the system to run JavaScript on the client. So that is the web browser. That is Chrome or the Edge browser, or if you are using any other browser which is supported by ServiceNow, and it usually runs when a form loads in ServiceNow or a form is submitted or a field value is changed on the form. Basically, if you are doing anything on the form directly from the web browser, that is called the client script. Be sure to answer it in your own words and also the interviewer understand what you are trying to convey. This is a very straightforward question. This is the first question. We will move on to the second one. What are the types of client scripts? So I'm sure many people would have got this question in their interview. The answer is on load, on change, on submit, and on cell edit. And if the interviewer asks or if he is interested in understanding all these four types of client scripts from you, please ensure that you know in depth about all these four types. If you want to learn all four of them in depth, I have created a separate video for this. The link is in the top right corner and in the description as well. So when you finish this video, please be sure to check that out and have an in-depth understanding of all these client scripts. The third one is, what is the difference between client scripts and business rules? The first one is the execution environment. As I explained earlier, the client scripts run on web browser. However, the business rules run on ServiceNow server. The second one is the purpose, why they are used. Client scripts are used primarily to enhance the user interface and provide immediate feedback. Business rules are used for server-side logic, data manipulation, and automation. So, for example, if you want to show or hide a field based on some condition, you will usually use client scripts or maybe the UI policies. But if you want to make any change in the database, or you want to apply any server-side logic, or you have to get data from ServiceNow servers, then you will be using business rules. So this is the primary difference and you should understand the second point, because where do you want to use client scripts, where do you want to use business rules? This is the base of ServiceNow. The third one is access to data. And in client scripts, as we said, they run on browser and they don't have access to the ServiceNow servers or the database. So it has almost no access to that. However, you can use Glide Ajax to fetch data from the ServiceNow server, which is a separate topic. But you should be telling that we don't have access to ServiceNow server data, but we can fetch that using Glide Ajax. But in business rules, you have the full access to database. You can use glide record to fetch those data, and if you are currently on that table, you can use current or previous. If you want to understand more about Glide Ajax, I have created a separate video for this as well. The link is on the top right corner and in the description as well. And the final point is common use cases. So if you want to validate the form data before submission, so you would want to check in client scripts if the data is in a specific format you wanted or not, or people have given all the required fields before submitting it to the ServiceNow server, you would use client scripts in those cases. One other thing client scripts are used for is to dynamically updating form fields based on user inputs. Now, for example, if you have selected a category and you want to show all the subcategories which are based on the categories, you can use client scripts for that to show only the options you wanted to show. And lastly, which we have discussed, the UI behaviors, hiding or showing fields, providing tooltips, and so on. So this is where we will use client scripts. But in business rules, if you want to enforce data integrity because it is updating data on the database, this is where you will use business rules. then automating the workflows, updating related records, or triggering notifications. So if you want to update data in some other table or you want to trigger notifications, you would use business rules for that. This is a very important slide, and please understand in depth the difference between client scripts and business rules. Moving on, the fourth question is, what is the role of G underscore form object in client scripts? So this is an object only available in client scripts, and it provides access to the current form's properties and methods. So there are many methods available in this object which will allow you to manipulate form fields, retrieve data, set values, and interact with form UI elements. So as we had discussed earlier that we can show or hide fields using client scripts, maybe make some fields mandatory. So that is made using the G underscore form object. Let's jump to service now and see an example quickly so that you are clear on G underscore form. I'm on ServiceNow and I am writing a client script called interview question test, which is on the incident table. And we will be using G underscore form object to do some basic functionality so that we can see what it is able to do. So you see out of the box, there are so many functions. So you want to disable attachments, enable attachment icon, which is on the top. You can see here as well. If you want to enable or disable this, you can use G underscore form as well here. And then if you want to get section names on the form, get the table name of the form, you can do all these things. Now, for example, you want to make a field mandatory, you can use this function dot set mandatory, and then you have to give the field name. You can see it here, they have given field name and the value. And now if I want to make any field mandatory on the incident form, I will use this function. And let's take an example of configuration item field. So this field is not mandatory out of the box. You can go ahead and make that mandatory. I will give the backend name of this field cmdbci and I will make it true. So in this statement, we are making cmdbci, that is the configuration item field, mandatory. If you give true, that means you are making the field mandatory. If you give false, you are making the field non-mandatory. You can do both the things using this function. I will go ahead and save this client script and I will open the incident form in a new tab. For that, I will type incident.list to get the list of all the incidents, and we will open a random incident and it should make that field mandatory. So you see here that configuration item field has been made mandatory using the client script which we had written, and you can see here the star button. Similarly, you can go and explore more about this object. I have created a separate video for this as well. I will provide the link in the description also. Moving on, the fifth question, what are the examples of G underscore form? We saw that there are many methods which are provided by ServiceNow, but you should know few basics of them before you appear for an interview. And if you don't know these, I think the interviewer will not be happy because these are kind of very basic methods. The first one is the get value, get the value of a specified field. So if you want to get the value what was in the short description or in the category or assignment group, you can get those using this get value function. Next is set value, if you want to set the value of the specific field. Set visible is used to make the fields appear or disappear on the form. You can give the field name here, the backend name, and then you can say here true or false, and it will make the field visible or invisible. Next is set mandatory, which we used in the previous question. Again, you can give the field name and then true or false to make it mandatory or non-mandatory. The final one is set read only. You will give the backend name of the field and then again true or false. If you give true, the field will become read only, and if you give false, the field will become editable. Next is how do you get the current user's information in a client script? I have seen many interviewers ask this question, so please be prepared about this. And you can use using G underscore user object. Like we had G underscore form object in ServiceNow to do operations on the form, we have G underscore user for getting the user's information who is currently logged in. The seventh question is how do you get current user sys ID in client script? We can use the g underscore user object dot user ID. I will just show you this in ServiceNow. We will go here in the same client script and we will do an alert and then g underscore user dot user ID. So it should give me the sys ID of the current logged in user. And as soon as I save this, I will go to the same incident and I will refresh the form. And since I deactivated the first line of making it mandatory, this mandatory should not come again, but it should show me an alert. So this should go away, the configuration item mandatory thing. I will refresh the form quickly and you see the current logged in users sys ID came up in the pop-up box and I will click on OK and this mandatory validation on configuration item has been removed as well. Next is how do you get the current user's first name and last name in client script? So when you are thorough on g underscore user object as well, this would be a very easy question for you. We can get the first name using g underscore user first name and we can get the last name of current logged in user using g underscore user dot last name. We will quickly test this as well. I'm again in the client script and let's do something little different. I will put an alert and we will say welcome in single quotes and I will give a space here and then I will say g underscore user dot first name and then I will put a space. After this, I will put the last name and last name here. I will save this. I will go back to the incident as soon as it is saved and I will refresh the form again and it should show me the welcome message. So the first name of my current logged in user is generic and the last name is user. So it says welcome generic user. I hope you have understood about g underscore user and its functions. Please go ahead and explore more on g underscore user because there are many properties and methods for this object as well. But these are the most common asked questions. The ninth one is what is isolate script used for? In ServiceNow, people have used DOM manipulations, jQuery or Windows object. For example, like windows.open or document.getElement by ID. These are not the best practices recommended by ServiceNow. So you should not use those. That's the first thing. But if your script needs to make use of either DOM or Windows objects, you need to isolate script so that system allows it for your script. For that particular script only, it will allow running these DOM manipulations. If we go back to ServiceNow and you see here at the bottom, you would see isolate script. If this is checked, that means it will allow those DOM manipulations. But again, it's not recommended by ServiceNow. Try not to use them. ServiceNow has given everything out of the box, but if it's really needed, please go ahead and do that by clicking this checkbox. One question I have here for everyone is ServiceNow also provides out of the box functionality, or I should say a system property where you can disable all the DOM manipulations in your ServiceNow instance. Write that in the comment and we will see who all knows that system property. And when your interviewer asks this question and you give this additional information, he would really be happy. So please go ahead and search that and type in the comments. Moving on to the 10th question, how do you call server side script from client script? If you remember this and you have been listening intently, I have already answered this question and the answer is using glide ajax. So using glide ajax function, you can go ahead and access data from server, and this is a very interesting topic we can discuss about. Again, as I had mentioned, I have created a separate video on this. The link is in the description. Next is how do you access old value and new value on change client script. So you can access those using old value and new value parameters in client script. If we go ahead and see this in on change client script, you would see there are old value and new value parameters already defined by ServiceNow. What these means is when you are changing a value on the field, the old value which was defined earlier on that field is stored in this parameter or in this variable, and the new value is stored in new value or in this parameter. Please be sure to go ahead and check this in your ServiceNow instance as well. Next is the 12th question, why and where g underscore scratchpad is used for. If you are an intermediate or a pro ServiceNow developer, this question is definitely asked to you. So the g underscore scratchpad object passes information from server to the client scripts. Now, if you want to access some information from server on runtime, then we use glide ajax. But if you know this particular value will be used in your client script, you are pretty sure you will be using this value which is not on the form, but I have to fetch it from the server, and you have to save time by not using glide ajax. What you can do when the form is being loaded, there is a type of business rule called display business rule which runs before onload client script, and there is a g underscore scratchpad object or property which will hold this value. So in display business rule, you will basically fetch that information from server, store in g underscore scratchpad property or variable, and then ServiceNow will automatically pass that variable in the onload client script, and then there you can use that value. To reiterate what I said, there is a display business rule. You define a value in this, fetch it from ServiceNow server, store it in g underscore scratch dot variable name. So you can have any variable name here you want. So g underscore scratchpad dot hardit, store that value using this variable, then pass it in the onload client script, which is automatically passed by ServiceNow. So you have to basically use that in onload client script. And how to use that in onload client script is pretty simple. You will use the same variable g underscore scratchpad dot hardit, and you will be able to fetch that value. So this involves both the concepts, display business rule and onload client script. The next one is, which one runs first, onload client script or display business rule? I think you would be pretty clear on this question because I have explained extensively in the previous question. So the answer is display business rule, obviously. The 14th question is, how do you show a pop-up in the client script? I'm sure you also know this answer. You can use alert, and then in the brackets you can give whatever you want. We tested this couple of times few minutes ago. But if you want to impress your interviewer, what you can do is you can give another function called confirm. So this also gives you a pop-up. But what is the difference? Let's go and see in ServiceNow. I'm in ServiceNow. Let's keep the alert here as is, and I will put confirm. And you see it automatically gives me that information and just a confirm test. And I will put a semicolon. I will save this. By the way, if you know, semicolons are not mandatory in JavaScript. I'll go ahead and refresh this. We will first get an alert, which is a pop-up box. Now we will get confirm, and if you see just a confirm test, and you would see these look pretty similar, right? There is no difference. Then why do we have a confirm? The difference is when you press OK or cancel, you can capture these responses in ServiceNow. And how to do that? Just go ahead and research that and type in the comments, and I will make a YouTube short video on this. So please subscribe to my channel if you want to know the answer as well. So this is the difference between alert and confirm. The 15th question is, how do you show an error on the form using client script? So if you are using ServiceNow since very long, you would have seen some error messages coming in pink or red color, and those are the error messages. And if it's an information message, it comes in blue color. You can use g underscore form dot add error message and then give that error message. For example, if you have written a logic to check some validations using client scripts, and when the validation has failed, you can show an error message to the end user that this validation has failed. Please go ahead and fix that. I will go into ServiceNow and show how the error message is displayed. We are in ServiceNow again. I will just add a new line quickly, g underscore form dot add error message, and I will simply give the message here. If you see the help here, it accepts only one parameter and that's string. So you have to give the error message in the string. I will say this is an error message test. We will give a semicolon. We will save this. We will go back to the incident and we will quickly refresh the form. It will give me an alert, it will give me a confirm, and it will give me an error message. This is an error message test. Now, if you have stuck to this video until this point, I have a surprise and a bonus for you. This is the 16th question, and this question is also very often asked in ServiceNow interviews. How do you stop a form from submission using client scripts? If some validation has failed on your form and you want the user to fix that before the form is submitted to the ServiceNow server, you can use return false statement and then the form will not be submitted to the ServiceNow server until that error is fixed. I will quickly show this you in ServiceNow. So now to test the return false functionality, we will have to write an on submit client script because you would stop the form from submission when somebody is trying to actually submit the form. I will type client scripts here. I will click on client scripts under system definition. I will click on new and I will say here submission test. Give the table as incident. And then we have to select the type of client script. We will use on submit and here I will type a script which I'll explain you quickly. So here you can see I've declared a variable called assign to and we are getting the value of assign to field from the form and storing in this variable, and we are checking if that is empty. We will show an alert message that it's not allowed and we will return false. Basically, we are checking if assigned to field has been filled or not, and if it is not filled, we will not allow the user to submit the form. We are making this field mandatory. You can use g underscore form dot set mandatory or UI policy to do that as well. But just to show the functionality of return false, I am using this example. And in else, if the user has given assigned to, that means he has put some value in there, we will just show an alert message submitting now and we will allow the user to submit the form. After we save this client script, we will go to the incident form. We will refresh this and we will leave the assign to field empty. Let's try to save this incident and it says return false, and you see how quick that response was because it's a client script. One other thing to note is client scripts are faster because they run on browser. Business rules are a little slow because they run on server. Now if I give assign to here some random user who is part of service desk group, maybe David Lu, and save this, it will say submitting now and it will actually go and submit the form. So these are the 16 questions, or I would say most important questions you should be aware of when you are preparing for an interview. I hope this video was helpful to you. You learned something new in ServiceNow client scripts, and let me know in comments if you have any other questions. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. Thank you.